keep
So here,
monitoring.
yes, I'm Lloyd Nelsen. I live out here in Western Colorado. I have a small company called Biodynamic Source. And here we are. This is the Profitable Regeneration Summit. So what we're looking at is actually, a lot of this stuff is there's so much farmland needs healing. And can we build health? Can we build longevity? Can we build a bank account in the soil? And so by improving your soil health, you can actually leave something good for the next generation. So this is one of the most important, I feel, topics of in the regeneration is how, you have to have these other pieces in place, like Mary Jo was talking about, these financial places. But then you also have to build this bank account into your soil. But this is not necessarily just a physical, this is a spiritual bank account too, because what happens when you eat good food, you get enlivened, your animals are eating good food, and then there's a whole full circle here. So biodynamics is about the full circle here. And let's see what's going on with my computer here. Okay, there we go. There's one of my cows. And you can see, always in biodynamics, we look at cows, we like to have their cows with the horns on because that's, it's the full expression of the cow. One of the biodynamic guys says that, if a cow had its horns taken off, it'd feel like the cow probably would have a headache the rest of its life. So anyways, here we go, advancing your biodynamic practices. And here's some of these soil tests. Now, I will say this, this is done through the Regen Ag Labs, NRCS and USDA funded test across the country. And we have shown on this biodynamic farm in Western Colorado that we've built a tremendous amount of soil tests, and even so much that they actually had to raise the metrics in how far they can measure the respiration and life in the soil. So this has been a biodynamic experimental project, and we have been working away on some simple, easy things you can do to really improve your soil. So we'll just jump right in. We'll talk about this gentleman here, Rudolf Steiner, Dr. Rudolf Steiner. He died in 1925. He gave he was German. Speaking of German enthusiasm, we had a lot of German enthusiasm just now. And I'm an enthusiastic proponent of biodynamics because as it works so well. So Steiner came up with these things over 100 years ago and gave the biodynamic method, and it's utilized all over the planet. There's not a country, basically worldwide, it's not somebody's not doing biodynamic work. In places in Australia, there's actually millions of acres under biodynamic cultivation. In Europe, it's really well known. In America, it's lesser known. But if you were looking at certification standards and all that, it's basically the highest level certification you can get for your food, your produce, or your animals. And it also, in the marketplace, receives the highest financial reward. So we got here this book, The Spiritual Foundations for the Renewal of Agricultures. And these are, yeah, so we know we live in a world of physical world, but if we have a connection here with there's another world that we've learned through there's the whole world of the angels, and there's a whole myth, there's a whole cosmology of things we could get into. And so part of our time here on the planet Earth is to what can we do to do good for Mother Earth, for her inhabitants, you know. And so Steiner, I was actually gave some really interesting ideas on how to use the forces of the star, the moon, the planets, how you can harness those, how you can make different herbal mineral remedies from your land to really enhance the soil health. So there was some simple things he got into. And one of the main proponents in biodynamics is you're using 9 biodynamic preparations. Now, the nice thing about these, everything I'm going to tell you, you can make these on your own. I've been out to the Sorensens, their ranch. We've made these preparations. They're not too hard. They take some time. They take some will forces, but you are building. You're building some. What you put into them. It's almost like the biodynamic preparations work similar to the fishes and the loaves, where you put it out. It contains a huge amount of microbiology, fungi, beneficial bacteria. You put those out, and then those go to work, and then they're working in your soil. And so they're even working after you apply these biodynamic preparations. So they're a little strange. I will have to admit some of these things are strange, but we have one's cow manure, one is quartz, basically silica crystal, and then we have these medicinal herbs, and these herbs are basically found all over yarrow, chamomile, stinging nettle, oak bark, dandelion, valerian, and equisetum. So these are all things that we make a remedy out of in biodynamics, and so There's biodynamic Demeter biodynamic certification. And in that certification list, they're just telling us here there's 9 biodynamic preparations made from herbs, minerals, and animal manures, utilizing field sprays and compost inoculants in minute doses, much like homeopathic remedies for humans. So they are almost homeopathic remedies for the earth. They stimulate health, and that's why we were able to build such nice soil health by applying just these homeopathic remedies because they work. But you really want to do this timely application. So when you put these in, when you do these things, there's a timing. I'll get into that. Timely applications revitalize soil and stimulate root growth, enhance development of microbiology, humus formation, photosynthetic activity. So, um, so in biodynamics, we make these 9 preparations from these herbs. And there's a whole standard in these things we can do, but you don't have to use this standard. This is just for those who are seeking certification. I have those in there. There's the one of my steers. That's at where I live in Western Colorado. That's the base of that's the last of the mountains of the West Elk mountain chain in the Rockies here. We're at the West Elk. So that's lamb born, where like the lamb is born, a taller one on the right, and then lands in. It's kind of a spiritual, mystical place out here. It's on the edge of where the desert meets the mountains. There's a lot of fruit farmers. It has more churches per capita than anywhere else in the world. Guinness Book of World Records for more churches per capita. Instead of the gold rush out here, they have the fruit rush. So it was such a good spot when they were able to pull these irrigation canals off the mountains. They were able to flood and actually, like in around 1900, won the world's fair for the best fruit in all the world. So they really turned into a big gold fruit rush out here. Oh, and there's there's some of the bison. I actually work with the bison too. The bison manure and enhancing this bison manure. You know, the bison were the indigenous bovine to the North America. And so actually working with these things is really powerful. So I'm just going to go over one of these preparations now, but this is in that Demeter standard. But we're using a cow horn. Strange thing. Some of you guys have seen where they've used cow horns before. Material. We're using fresh cow manure, and we're packing that manure into this cow horn. And then it says burial. We're going to bury it in a good spot. But I'll show you here. This is over there at Sustainable Settings Ranch. These are the dairy cows. Now, one of the things I notice when I drive through Utah, other places, I see these piles of manure, these huge piles of manure. And I look at manure I just see it as dollar signs. I can't believe there's these, they turn into such waste products, but there is ways to enhance this manure to where it becomes gold for fertilizing your land. So here we are out in the field. We want to collect in biodynamics. We want to create a super manure. So this is a super concentrated cow manure where you're only using a tiny amount, half a cup or less per acre, but you're stimulating soil health. So we collect that fresh cow manure from lactating cows, and then we actually pack those. Here's some happy horn stuffers. This was just the other day, packing these cow horns. We're capping these off with clay. And then this was the workshop we just did. You can see people actually can get really into this kind of thing. And this is, basically we're creating fertilizers. So you could go out, you can buy fertilizers, you can go spend money, like Mary Jo was saying. You could go to the bank, you can buy fertilizer, you can do all these things. Or can you keep that money within the family? Yes, you can. These things can be done at home. This is powerful medicine. So look how happy Andrew was when he just finished making those horns. So there you got that one. And then we're going to bury these things. They're going to go into the ground. And what we see is these cow horns actually make this ideal spot for microbial inoculation. There's powerful fungi, bacteria. There's so much microbiological life that happens in these cow horns. So modern science has actually said, well, there's actually a whole lot happening in these cow horns with the breeding of beneficial fungi. And so putting those out on your land, it's super stimulated. So, there's all sorts of ways you can do this, but we bury them in the fall, dig them in the spring. And so here's one of my cow horns. I've got the one horn in the middle surrounded by 12. For me, I have this, I can do, in biodynamics, you can be artistic. You're creating your fertilizer to build health on your land, to build earthworms, topsoil, root growth, really healthy plants. But, when you're making these things, you can also make them beautiful. So one thing for me, I always visualize the 12 around the one here when I start off my pit, and I'll show you this how this is going to develop. But 12, one representing maybe all of us or the earth or the oneness, the unity of life, or even the Christ and the center of it all. And then we have the 12, and you can think about the 12 apostles, maybe the 12 disciples, or the 12 tribes of Israel even represented, or the 12 zodiacal constellations. So incorporating things, I'm sure you guys have studied, some of you studied numerology or sacred geometry, or studied herbalism, all the architecture, all these different things. You can craft this into your biodynamics. And that one of the reasons these soil tests have been so amazing that we've had, it shows the result of being creative with our work for fertilizers. So here's another one. These are marking different types. This is another one we're making. Is the opposite of the horn manure. This is our summer preparation. This is the quartz crystals. So you don't have to use crystals. You can use regular quartz. You can find the quartz that's growing on your land. But what's happening here is we're actually crushing. I've got a T-post pounder here and a tamping bar. I'm crushing these crystals, and then I'm placing these into the horn in the summer. And so you can see this is kind of an opposite gesture. This is the summer where I'm pulling the energy and the sort of the summer sun radiating. So this is actually making a fertilizer that I'm only going to use about a teaspoon per acre of. So each one of those will contain enough to do like 100 acres. So there's enough to do like 3,000 acres probably there just in that pit alone. So it doesn't take much. Here's some of the biological activity I wanted to show you. When that manure comes out of the cow horn, it should be completely permeated with life. And now you got to be careful. Roots are going to want to get in there. And this is what happens when you get too many roots. The plants love these biodynamic preparations so much they'll come eat them. So you can only leave them in the ground for about 6 months. And if you were able to zoom in on that tip of all those roots, there's like 1,000 root tips. They're all going to that horn, to the tip of that horn, and they stop. They don't really necessarily turn around, but they all are going in there. And so you think about this horn, like the cornucopia, the horn of plenty. This is an interesting thing, but what happens, it's an enhancement, and it enhances whatever goes in there. There's a reason in the temples they're using the horn as the anointing oil. I was lucky I got to go to the Grand Junction temple before it's consecrated. I got to go take a tour of that just recently, and I got to see some more cool cow horns in there. Now, one of the things when you bury these cow horns with the manures, you want to get worms. You're going to get worms in there. The worms, you don't want too many worms. So you want to you're actually trying to, I put clay caps between the cow manure when I dig it up. Now, here's when I'm getting fancy, and I'm really going for some, now I've got in here on this layer probably about 150 cow horns. Now, each of those will contain enough cow manure to do probably like 3 acres. So I'm looking at, in this pit just right here, I've got enough to do about 500 acres of sprays. And once or twice a year, if I spray that at the right time, I can build an immense amount of soil health. And you're basically building your biological bank account in the soil by using this preparation. So I'm burying these in the fall. This time of year, these just went in. Here's another one we were working on. This one's over in Carbondale. Here's the one. There's the left, on the one on the left is my most recent one. I just did that the other day over here in Colorado. And let me see if I can get this to, now you can watch what you're seeing on the left-hand side of the screen is this first layer. So I actually got 144 in there, which is again like that 12 times 12. That's the Fibonacci sequence. There's like a sacred geometry even in that. But you can see even that pattern, it's pretty powerful. But okay, well, watch what happens here. Now we're going to add soil. And we're going to get a second layer, and you can actually see these are actually spinning in the opposite direction. So I'm creating some energetic flow in this. Now Jared is right. This is kind of wild stuff. You guys are probably not used to this, but if we could come up with some powerful things to build soil health and to rejuvenate the land where we don't have to be dependent on outside resources, these things can come from within our land, within our homes, environment, and within a region. So we got here, turn that down. So this is a slow-mo picture. I actually have this this lemniscate. This is a concrete mixer, but we are mixing concrete in here and pumice with us. This is a lemniscate sacred energy device put onto the concrete machine to add imbued energy into what we were building here. So I was building this pizza oven, and the lady wanted to make it look like she said that she wanted this to look like a garlic clove. So there we go. We got that mixer going. And then where are we here? Oh, there's the oven going up. But anyways, this is also I've added sacred geometry into our building. So everything you can do to increase these enhancements of life, even when you're building, you can even see we added the spiral. And the spiral, we're going to get into more of the spiral, but this is the spiral of life here. And we in one of these buildings we built recently, and this actually has 3 of those domes with the spirals in them. Um, there was a theory in this thing that you go in there and you almost get it's kind of wild, but the guy who designed this, he said this is an anti-aging house, so you'll only age like 250 out of the 365 days in a year. So this is sacred geometry built into the house. Just an interesting concept to think about. Steiner, when he gave some of these ideas, he said, actually this architecture, us living in these square boxes, is much more damaging than for our soul and our spirit is than a lot of things than we actually realize. So having beautiful architecture, having beautiful, it's one thing to go out there with this manure and spray that on your land. Another thing to go out there with something that has a skull and crossbones on it. You'd wonder, am I doing something beautiful here, or is this in alignment with God's creation? Now, ideally, all these biodynamic preparations, this is the second part of that standard, is they're created on the farm. So these are things that are found locally. They are mostly used as a waste product or medicinal herbs you can go get out there. I make all these. I have them available. There's some other places out there. So I want to jump in here and talk about these biodynamic compost remedies, because that's one of the things I see. If you can have your compost, it is one of the best fertilizers for all the life. In general, manures and stuff are seen as a waste product. So we are putting these things that are normally a waste product back into making incredible compost. And so there's an actually huge economic advantage here. Like one of the things they found is if you add these different compost preparations, and again, we're talking about very small amounts, like a teaspoon in like 15 tons of compost. So we're adding tiny, but they found much more even composting process. It doesn't get the highs and lows. You're not going to get a lot of escape. The odor is going to kind of be contained. And at the end, you get a quicker compost. So people have found that done these large composting operations by adding these compost preparations, you can actually reduce the number of times you have to turn the compost. So we're going to get into here. Our first one's going to be yarrow. Now we know yarrow is a great healer, but yarrow actually is a potassium and sulfur. So if anybody's out there buying potassium fertilizers and stuff and sulfur, there's the living potassium right there in your land. So these things, this is an amazing remedy to use. And if you can't, these kind of get into each one of these preparations a little bit more challenging to make, but I will just tell you right now, you can just use the flowers of these plants here to have a great result. One of the things we like to go way up in the high elevations of Colorado in the mountains to find the yarrow growing. And yarrow is a great healer. And it'll by using that on your you can do a lot towards healing the land. Chamomile, I don't even have a picture of that one. Sorry, I don't know. Where's that slide gone to? But chamomile, has anybody ever drank chamomile tea when their stomach is upset? And oh man, you feel so much better. Think about that. The Mother Earth, as we can see her, call her, she's a living being, and she's got respiration. She has a diaphragm. She has a digestion, and so that digestion is happening in that top layer of your soil, right? So imagine now you've plowed maybe at the wrong time. Maybe your soil's hardened because you plowed when it was a little too wet, or you've got a big crop of corn out there and you got a lot of stubble or something cover crop you're trying to till in, and you want this stuff to break down quicker. You want it to digest. Well, you can use chamomile as a digestive. Again, you're only using a small amount, but what this can heal, like I call it digestive issues of the soil, but that's bringing the soil food web back into health. So you're boosting the fungi, bacteria, all the life through the chamomile. Now, this next one, though, stinging nettle, is actually an amazing plant. So Steiner says we should use this one. And this one contains a huge amount of nitrogen, tons of protein, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, all the trace elements. So if you could find one plant, now I know this is on the noxious weed list, but this does grow out there in nature. You can grow it in the gardens too. But if you wanted one plant that would that you can fertilize all your gardens with and create a super fertilizer that will restore health. Also, if for pregnant women, it's like one of the best herbs for the anemia and bringing iron into the blood. Also, for just general human health, by eating nettle is one of the strongest plants you could take. You could live off of it. Nettle has this action that, the bee sting or the ant bite, it has that formic acid, oxalic acid. This nettle has the same thing that those insects have in it. So this has the ability to super boost your soil and your plant health. You can actually replace fertilize by making a compost out of this just nettle. You can replace most of your fertilizer needs. One of my friend, he just takes all this nettle compost and he puts a handful in each tomato plant, and he swears he has no issues of tomatoes. He gets the most robust tomatoes, and so he says he can do that versus like putting a half a wheelbarrow of his other compost. So this nettle is an incredible plant. Oh, that's back to that chamomile. So that chamomile is going to bring in that living calcium and the sulfur, but it also is going to stabilize that nitrogen. So the BD503, that's referring to chamomile preparation. The BD502, that's the yarrow, and BD504, that's the nettle. So this one, he says the chamomile kindles the life, and Steiner gives us this idea that it really creates this, improves the nitrogen in the soil. So here we are making that chamomile. We do weird stuff here. Well, so biodynamics, we take that chamomile, we actually place, we make sausages with it. So that's a small intestine that gets placed in the earth. That's one of the homeopathic remedies. So, like I said, is the chamomile is going to work on your digestion when you have an upset stomach? Well, the cow's got the biggest digestive tract of all the mammals already. So by combining this cow and this digestive process and the chamomile, Steiner says we could have this homeopathic remedy that will heal the soil. So again, we're using maybe like a teaspoon per acre as a spray. It doesn't take much. There's chamomile. There's some more going in the ground, and then there's our nettle. So yeah, that nettle has a huge amount of iron, and Steiner actually says that iron is as important. The iron in the nettle is as important to iron for Mother Earth as it is for the iron in our blood. So, so he says if you want he's interchange manure here and compost kind of but if you want to have intelligent compost, basically, if you want to have super enlivened compost, then nettle is what you would use. So there's some stinging nettle way up at the high elevation. It's gone to seed a bit. But again, if you can find these things growing wild, they're a weed, but can we? Now, I will tell you, this nettle, I'm just going to say it, I sold a quart of finished nettle to the Biodynamic Institute because they were out. I think that quart of nettle was like $500 for a small jar of finished product. So these things, if you're making them for yourself, that didn't take me that much long, but that's another possible income. I mean, every time you think about every fertilizer you're taking off the land, or buying from somewhere else, you're importing something. It's going to cost you one way or another. So stinging nettle, we chop it up, we put this stuff and make we actually bury these in the ground. We're putting these in tiles here. We've done other ways. I think I might have a few other tricks here. Here's one with in the brick pit. That's all the nettles. This is what I prefer. It's what I would tell you guys to do. Go out there, find the nettle, chop it, and you see these bags here. This is one of the best things I found. These are 5-gallon bucket paint strainer bags. So you go down to the paint store and you got some paint that's been in the air too long, gets kind of clods in it. You take one of those buckets, you take a 5-gallon bucket, put that bag over, you strain your paint through it. Well, I found this is the easiest way to collect all these things. So what I can do here is this nettle has been chopped up. I put it into put that bag in a 5-gallon bucket, and I stuffed and I stuffed and I stuffed and I close it. We bury it for a year, and when we dig this up, this is like the ultimate fertilizer. So I'm just going to go through these things. If you guys want to make something simple, easy, this is probably like one of the easier, more economical. And Jared, we have another half an hour, right? Is that correct? We're at 4:30, I believe.
Yeah, we'll save some time for question and answers at the
You
end.
got it.
Maybe interject one right now. I think it's worthy putting in there. David asked a question. Let me scroll up here and see. What does it cost per acre to do all this? How much of an impact does it have, and how long will the results last?
Yep. Okay. Good questions there. That's the general, like if you were to buy the preparations from one of the sources, it costs you somewhere in the range of about $20 an acre. You'll have to stir those, and I'm going to get into how we apply those here shortly. But so you're looking at about $15 to $20 an acre, and that should be enough to get all 9 of those biodynamic preparations on the land. Um, and we'd like to do it in the fall and in the spring, mainly those. So right now, this time of year, really good time of year to apply them. And one of the things, you can apply them as simply as just, kind of like whisking them out, or on bigger acreage, we have sprayers. Now we're running drones on a really large acreage they hold like, I don't know, about 11 gallons at a time. But what the nice thing about biodynamics, again, homeopathic dose, so the normal rates are about 3 gallons of liquid per acre. So you're not having to go over there and you're not having to spray every single bit of your land, all that. But what you generally, right away, you're going to notice some things. Um, by using the preparations, and there's it's sort of an you can say an awakening of things. So you'll start to notice more things happening. I don't It's interesting, like you'll like soil life, animal biology, like just plant differences in plants. But you generally, by using these things, and sometimes it takes a couple years really to get it going. They say like by year 4 things really start kicking into place. But you definitely start to see an overall improvement in plant health. And then um, and now that's not to say that you're not going to have things that are still going to go bad, because by at the tenet of biodynamics is all your other farming should be really good, and then you can add this as like the cream of the something on top.
Yeah,
um
well said. It doesn't overcome poor management or uh, poor farming practices, right? We still need to do a lot of the things like you explain, and we'll let you keep rolling here, but that it augments the good things that we are already doing and accelerates that, such as no-till and proper grazing management and um, the common practices that you would see in regenerative agriculture. This, and as I see it, it speeds those things up and helps the results come quicker.
Yeah, I think that would be the way to put it. That helps kind of just quickens the whole process of biological activity, life, and all that. And so we are, there is easy ways too. Like Jared, you mentioned, you're going to be doing cover cropping, or you're going to be doing, crimping. Um, you're gonna be plowing things in certain times. So there are ways you can easily just add it. You can in biodynamics, you're only, like I said, 3 gallons an acre. So a lot of these bigger farms, like in Australia, where they're doing like 100,000 acres at a time, they just have a tank on the front or the back of the tractor while they're ripping and doing one other thing in, and they're just dripping as they go, drip, 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 the prep along. So you're putting that biological activity right in there. So a lot of these things can actually happen while you're doing other things. I just wanted to get to this real quick. This is stinging nettle ferment. So stinging nettle, a lot of people buy fertilizers, right? The fertilizers, it's a big deal. People need to fertilize. But if this one, you can take stinging nettle fresh, put it in water. Then we call it stinking nettle because it kind of stinks, But this is an ultimate fertilizer. You could take this stuff, dilute it like 1 to 20, 1 to 100 even, spray it on your crops, and immediately see. So all you got to do, cut stinging nettle, add water, let it sit, ideally stir it once a day or a couple times. There's some nettle, and then oak bark. We're actually working with the living calcium of the oak, and the oak bark is our one for plant disease. So if you guys are having plant disease issues at all, this oak bark is a living calcium remedy to get rid of the. And so we're just collecting the outer oak, burying that. Let's see. Then we've got our last one will be our dandelion. And our dandelion actually is going to be, Steiner actually tells us, he says the earth is losing its power to reproduce with this loss of silicic acid. And so he says the silica in this dandelion is super powerful and that it can be used as a remedy. So if you want to increase yields, again, this one, teaspoon per acre, but you'll get increased yields by using the dandelion. And we want those yellow heads. Um, and again, this is a people don't like dandelions in general, right? I mean, if you look on the in the news in the spring, you'll see all the Roundup ads for destroying the dandelions. These dandelions grow beautiful. You can actually see, hard to see across the way. That's all dandelion fields in the lower sections there. These, as I go up to the mountains and collect these, um, when the dandelions are going off, and if I spend 4 hours out there in the dandelion prep picking dandelions, you know what dandelions go for now? You can't even get them. So if anybody needs a job out there, they go for like $100 a pound for dried dandelions, and they're even impossible to find. Chamomile, guys, you know something? I was looking for this organic chamomile. I got a bunch of it right here. These big sacks they come in for making the preparation. They come in organic chamomile in the United Egyptian certified organic Egyptian chamomile, $17 a pound, 17.90 a pound online. I said, well, can I find the American chamomile? Yeah, I found it. Guess how much it was? $179 a pound for chamomile. So that's an amazing opportunity. Some of these herbs alone would be definitely some possibility. I was shocked to find out there was the chamomile in the United States just recently, $179 a pound. That's ridiculous. Um, so if you have a soil where that grows well, maybe you'd want to get that. We're taking these dandelions, we're making them, burying those. And then last one we got here, there's one more, but this is our valerian. Valerian, uh, is a powerful plant, and this is phosphorus. Phosphorus is for flowering. So if you want to have really good flowering, you want to have a really good, healthy, one of the things we found in the soil test, we unlocked our phosphorus. We have a lot of phosphorus in the soil, but it's not necessarily available. By using these preparations, these things become available. So the available phosphorus, and again, this one is a liquid now, but we're only using like a tincture dropper full per acre. This is also the one they use in biodynamics for, frost protection. So the valerian, we're just using those flowers. So again, if somebody wanted to have a nice economical income, that's I get one tincture dropper full of valerian is $3. So that makes it if you're buying it, so you can make it on your own for 2 hours of work, or but a quart that turns out to be a quart's worth like $800 or $1,000 for valerian. So it's these things, they go for a lot of money, even though, because you're using such a small amount, if it's $3 an acre, but if you can make a quart full and you can use it often, you can have a lot better results real easy. The other thing is, here you're just using these flowers. So if Jared, you guys were growing this in 4 or 5 years, you guys would have all that valerian root that would be ready to harvest. That's a very valuable crop. Um, and medicinal herb companies love that. So let's see. Then I'm making a juice out of this valerian. Here we go, and fermenting it. Valerian is actually related to the planet Saturn, so you can look at these planetary relationships here. I don't even have time to get into that. And then this equisetum here, this horsetail herb. You guys have seen this one. It's probably, again, on the noxious weed list, I bet. This is how it grows in Colorado, kind of dwarf, grows like, 12 to 18 inches tall. This is the oldest plant on the planet, Equisetum arvens, or the equisetums, also known as the horsetails. These grew, these were what the main primary deposits of these coal seams are these ancient equisetums that grew. So when there were no plants on the earth, this plant, it evolved as a rock eater because there was nothing else to eat. So still to this day, this is like 90% silica. This is like a living crystal almost. If you were to burn this, it's almost pure silica. And so this is actually the ultimate thing for fungal. If you have like tomato blight, fire blight, or a blossom end rot on your tomatoes, or any kind of those fungal diseases, powdery mildew, you name it, use this one. And it gets rid of those. But not only that, it strengthens plants. It gives them like a strong, like skeletal protection, like almost like a skin-like protection. Um, but what they've also found is this is a super, and this is again, I think on the soil tests, why those soil tests were so amazing. We use equisetum. You're not using a lot. You're using like a handful of this dried herb, crushed up. I have some somewhere around here. And then you're just taking that and you're making a tea out of it, spraying it out. But what you're seeing is a huge boost in beneficial fungal populations. So the beneficial fungi are much higher or challenging to breed than beneficial bacteria. Like when you're doing it in the soil food web, you're making compost tea, you can get your bacteria up, but the beneficial fungal a little harder. So if you want to have real soil health, add this, make a tea out of this equisetum. Here it is growing again. You guys have probably seen this growing along the irrigation ditches. And so maybe, Jared, maybe you don't have this growing on your ranch, but maybe, your neighbor down the road does. Or maybe like the ladies down in Utah, they have a really great section of oaks, or, you guys can find resources amongst each other, because I'm sure on this conference call right now, there's somebody who says, yes, I've got an amazing oak grove. And somebody's probably else is saying, yes, I've got, the dandelions grow like mad at my place. And the only one that doesn't grow in the wild here where we live in general is this chamomile. I don't know if you guys have it in the wild, but definitely not here in Colorado. It's the only one I haven't found. Um, so here's some more. It's just a small little plant. You can see it growing up here in the spring. Beautiful little stuff. And then I want to get in this because this is one of the easier of, another preparation to make, but a simple one. We're just using, this is this is going to be the one of the easiest biodynamic preparations that you can. This is kind of like a compound preparation, basically, but this will get you all the influence of the compost preparations out in your land. So if you make one of these, you'll have enough to spray like 500 acres. It'll take you like 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours maybe total to get all this stuff together. And these ingredients, if you have to, you can collect your manure locally, you get your eggshells. You might have to buy the rock powder or the preparations. Those preparations for a set is going to cost like $20. And that powder, you can buy a 50-pound sack of basalt rock powder for like $40. So anyways, we're going to stir this cow manure. We're going to add the eggshells and the basalt. Oh, and, again, a shitty job. Somebody's got to do it. But again, this is a waste product in most everywhere you see. But what we can turn this into something extremely valuable. On the retail market now, that's like if I'm saying that's like 3,000, that amount right there will turn into about $3,000 worth of finished preparation by the time we're done. And it's just, but we're putting intention into it. We've got all these people working. I like to do the Tom Sawyer thing, and I teach these workshops, but then I get people to do the work too. It's kind of good. Oh, here they are, stirring more manure. And more manure. Oh, there, actually, this is the pit we did over at the Sorensen's place a while back.
Oh yeah,
And
remember that.
yeah, it's a simple thing to do, and here's a demonstration. You can do this kind of anywhere. We collected cow manure out there. They didn't even have bricks. What they had was those concrete tiles with the fancy stamp on it. Now that looks pretty good. I don't know if I have, is that one oh yeah, I got them stirring too. That's pretty good. So proof is in the pudding, but we've had, phenomenal results with this. So it's an hour stir. Once you've done that, it's done though. You put it in the ground, it's sitting. You may have to check it on in 3 or 4 months. Oh, look at that. There's the ranch and there's my cup of coffee I left on the fence post. Wow, what a view.
When I signed up for the first class that I went to with Lloyd and his colleague Brooke, it was something about I just saw barrel compost, and I'm like, a compost, that sounds like fun. I was going to be at the conference anyway, so I went a day early, and I'd never heard about biodynamics. So if you guys are a little bit weirded out by this, don't worry. I was too at first. I was able to overcome a little bit of that because our family does do homeopathics and things, and it's was just drawing the correlation that this is just homeopathics on a large scale for the land.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, I agree. I mean, at first, some of these things shocked me right away. I met biodynamics at the age of 19. I've been doing it for 28 years. But the men that I learned from, These guys were so serious. Hugh Courtney, he was a master biodynamic preparation maker, and he held Christ at the center of his heart and his work. And he said, I'm doing this work for restoring Mother Earth, for the Christ, for the health of humanity. And he had the power to said, we can do this on our, we can do this with our two hands. We can create health, fertility. These things may be strange. Even Steiner in the agriculture course, he says, those people that they, 100 years ago when he was giving, he says, they wanted to put railroad tracks to the top of those Swiss mountains, and everybody got completely ridiculed them because that was ridiculous. Now people drive in the railroad tracks, and it's no big deal. So biodynamics, yeah, this is weird, but if you can treat your land and have the best soil results out of the entire countries, with the NRCS, USDA looking behind your shoulder and wondering what the heck your guys are doing, and yeah, you still might question. I still question. I have no idea, but I know I'm working with something incredibly powerful. And we know that if we want to, we have to increase our ability to build soil health, because, we're basically at a junction where agriculture is becoming too expensive, too hard, too much challenge if you cannot have great results. So there's finished barrel compost. You just dig it out, and then here's a couple more pits. There's those pits we're doing out in California. Here's adding some of the compost preparations. I'm going to kind of breeze through these. You can add jute mesh over the top to kind of keep the mushroom. But this is a barrel. Now look at this. This life comes down. Look at these mushrooms. These are just the ink caps. But what's happening now is this is concentrated cow manure forage. So I used a quarter cup to a third of cup, maybe a half a cup per acre of this stuff. Spray it out, but now I'm inoculating. You can see these fungi. You can see the life here. So this stuff is incredible. And again, this is usually a waste product, cow manure. So can we do something? Here's another pit. I got a few examples here. So it shows you they don't have to all be the same. Here's a guy that was doing this, Philip Livers. He's doing this on he has like 2,000 acres of corn, and he has to use Roundup because he has major weed issues. But he says, I'm doing biodynamics too, and he says people might not think that's a good combination, but I got to do what I got to do. So he actually, sometimes you have to use Roundup. Sometimes you're going to have to make compromises. But can you do something to help heal the soil while we're always trying to extract and take other things off? Barrel compost in storage. Barrel compost left too long in the ground. The roots eat it up. Okay, this is kind of fun. This next section, the vortex. So somebody was asking, how do we apply? So we take we make these 9 preparations. We're getting a vortex. So I have a machine here that does it. We'll take this preparation. We're going to stick it in the vortex. Now I'll show you here. This also can be done by hand. So this is just somebody stirring a 55-gallon drum with a pole overhead, and you're creating a vortex in one direction, and then you want the chaos, and you want to start stirring the other direction. And we want to go on. This is another one. This is another machine creating a vortex. So much life is happening here, though. So we're transferring the energy from these preparations into the water by enlivening this water through the vortex. Here's another one. And another one. And I'll show you, I think this one has, this machine is nice because you can stir all this water. And so this holds enough to do about 30 gallons, 80 gallons. So I could do like about 30 acres at a time. This is another stirring device where it's just in a waterfall, and there's creating lemniscates back and forth. But there's all sorts. You guys can understand the biblical meaning of the land of milk and honey. Can you reinstate the land of milk and honey? Well, one of the things, if you get insects and you get disease, especially insects, something's out of balance. Something is not right. So one of the things, you can actually add milk and honey to a stir, spray that on your land, and we've had amazing results with insects disappearing overnight by using this. And evoking the biblical land of milk and honey, is that something you could do? Maybe you can at least put yourself in that imagination and put that out into your farm and that gesture and return that milk and honey that we always consume back to the land, give it back out as a gift, see what kind of magic and miracles could happen. Here's another stirring machine. This one's bottom stirred, very industrial hydraulic stainless steel. There's another guy making these water towers. Okay, here's a couple different sprayers we're using. And spraying it on the vineyard here. Here's one. So I'll show you guys this picture you're seeing. This is one of the most economical sprayers you'll ever see. And people always do all these challenging things, to get to do sprayers. And I have a spray service, so I know I used to have big booms and all these different fancy things, but I've come down to the conclusion that this setup that you can get from the hardware store with just these are all hose fittings. So those are just hose fittings. They don't clog. If they do, they come apart real easy. I'm sure you guys have all sprayed something. When your thing gets clogged up, it's one of the most frustrating things you can do. So I just have a simple 5 horsepower trash pump, 2-inch trash pump. And I'm spraying these preparations out. And I'm spraying like 80-foot wide area because these will both spray about 30, 40 foot in each direction. And so I'm spraying about an 80-foot and you can wide area as I go. And I can get in and out of trees and in pastures. Real simple. Okay, here's another one. We're spraying this one up in the air for fruit. And so one of the things in biodynamics, that silica, you're going to right away notice increase in flavor of your fruits. Keeping quality is going to be dramatically increased of like all your winter squash, tomatoes, all those things. The shelf life is greatly increased by using these biodynamics. Here's us spraying on the hemp fields. There's another one. Okay, so yeah, this is all that's required here. Barrel compost at the very bottom is a half cup per acre. And that in the requirements for Demeter, that's only they only require that once every couple years. They need to use it more. The horn manure, they've got a weird thing. It's from 3/4 to 4 1/4 ounces. It's about 2 ounces. It's about 2 ounces of volume per acre. Silica is used in the morning, and the horn manure is used in the evening. And so minimally, you need to apply the 500 and the horn manure to be certified biodynamics. Okay, so I know I'm running out of time, but I want to tell you this is one of the easiest ways.
8 minutes.
Yep. The biodynamic planting calendar. This is kind of bringing this whole, but we know now, if you've ever studied, where we as human beings come from, I mean, we are born from the stars, and if you come down here, they actually say, like, Aries, the ram, is related to the head, and that's related to Mars, and that's related to the element of fire, and Libra, that's the balance, that's the middle, that's the scales, and that's the kidneys, and that's related to Venus and air. So all of the different constellations actually create, if you look at that body part, the head, neck, arms, breath, all the way down to the knees, legs, and feet, we're represented in the stars. We come down from the stars to do this work here on Earth. So maybe some of these things feel strange, but you think about in cosmic evolutionary picture of it. Hey, are you going to be a big being in tune with the starry cosmos, or not? It's up to you. Anyways, the moon has a big influence on plant growth. Now, this is just here out in northern Colorado, between Utah and northern Colorado there. This point of that tip is the old calendar. Oh shoot, I don't do. Can you see it? It's hard to see, but that point heads down underneath the sun. There's these petroglyphs where the indigenous people here, they knew when to plant their corn when they had made this special moon calendar. And so I'm just going to tell you, this is a lot easier now that we have all this stuff printed out for us. So here's the image you need to ingrain in your mind if you're thinking about biodynamics: earth, air, fire, water. These are the 4 building blocks of creation, as we've known. Now those 4 elements are related to the 4 parts of the plant. The most watery part of the plant is the leaf. That's why they always do lettuce and hydroponics. And the energy of the fire is in the fruit, the seed, the summer sun, earth with the root. So you just get this whole idea that we're out here in this cosmic spiral. Here we are in this ring. That spiral is part of that whole, what I was telling you about earlier, all the stars and all of us. So we're the earth surrounded by these 12 constellations of the zodiac. And now we can look at each one of these constellations actually has an influence on growth here, especially when the moon is in front of those constellations. So we can break that down into there's three constellations that really relate to the earth part of the. So if you're doing roots, if you're growing roots, if you're trying to build soil health, if you're doing anything with the earth, you want to ideally choose one of these root days. Whereas if you're trying to do, grow fruit or grains, you might want to choose one of these fruit seed days, and that's shown in the calendar ahead. So therefore, if you were to harvest a squash when the moon's in front of one of these water constellations, it's going to rot uh, twice as quick as if you were to harvest it when the moon's in front of one of these fruit fire constellations. So we have the different constellations that are related to the different elements. And then here, just to show you, this calendar is real nice because it's printed here, the 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st of October coming up. The moon is in front of Virgo. It's in front of a root sign, earth sign. The earth is increased. If we spray our horn manure, we'll have a huge impact. Also, like if I was going to plant garlic, I would want to plant my garlic on that root day. So they make this calendar real easy, even though it might look a little challenging. And I'm going to breeze through here. So we got the rest of the year. Oh, if you want to source biodynamic preparations, you can get them from me, biodynamicsource.org. Here's my email, Lloyd R. Nelsen. Also, the Josephine Porter Institute for Applied Biodynamics. That would be a good resource there. What else do I have? Oh, I'll show you quick storage. These preparations are so powerful. We store them in earthenware crocks surrounded by peat. The soil testing. Yeah, so this is all that I wanted to get into that. We didn't even get a chance to, but this is showing some of the things with the Regen Ag Labs and the different tests we've been doing here. So yeah, and we have a few more years of data, and this trend is going up here. This is another one of the tests, and another, but it's now this was a couple years ago. We're over 200,000 tests now with these. We're at 427 here in Colorado. So here's what our soil samples look like. They've gone up. The next year's in there. It's gone up even better. I will leave you guys with one of my last horn bits because it's kind of fun to see. And I'll take any questions now too. We got a minute or two.
Yeah, that is super great summation of what biodynamics is. And again, if it seems like, hey, that's a little far out there for me, just sit with it for a little bit and even be prayerful about it if you're a praying person. Like, how does this fit? And I believe that absolutely, if you look at the proof in the soil data, it might seem weird, but heck, if it gets results, is it worth it, right? And if we are going to be truly regenerative, then boy, this to me is a whole lot better than spraying out synthetics and spending a lot more money to be able to get some good results. So, Lloyd, it's been great. We appreciate the good work that you're doing.
Sure.
Would talk a little bit about like the application that you do with the drone and how how feasible is that? Or what's if somebody wants to get started, how much would they have to spend to actually get the equipment to
Well, and all these things you can do it really cheap on your own by hand. That's what I did for all these number of years. That and then if you want to go further, we're looking somewhere right now. We're doing about 300 acres at around $30 an acre on a large scale farm. We're going to actually do that in a few days here. So it's pretty economical overall, different price, when we're doing ranch land, larger scale, the price economic goes down. Steiner even says you can use less. I did want to share this quick with you. I'm doing a three series webinar. We just had our first one
nice.
with Demeter, but there will be two more. So if you guys can look that up on, especially, I think it's the best way I found it was Facebook. And
Okay.
there's my last sustainable settings. If you guys want to talk to Brooke over there where they're doing those soil tests, he would love to talk to you about some of that. So look at that, 429. Talk about it. You've had some enthusiastic speakers here. I'm really quite proud of all the good work that's happened here, Jared, and pulling all these people together. Thank you so much, and thank you to all the Sorensens and all the helpers out there. You guys are amazing, and I wish you luck. And we have the opportunity to do major things, and we can do them economically with love in our hearts to improve the land and the health of humanity and all of the Earth's inhabitants. So that's why we're here to regenerate life. Biodynamics is definitely one of the easiest ways to quicken that whole process.